Hiya, it's so nice to see you join us for this week's episode of the Bible in 52 Weeks. My name's Emmanuela Gyimah, and in the last couple of episodes have been a bit dramatic, but today we'll focus on the book of Ruth, which can be described as a fascinating, emotionally gripping, and historically significant narrative, sometimes even referred to as a crown jewel of the Old Testament. Although very brief, this book is not only considered a literary masterpiece, but also a record of a genealogy of David, who will be crowned king of Israel, appointed by God, from whom the Messiah's endless rule will stem from. Here's an overview of Ruth. It's a dark and troubled time for Naomi. A famine drives her and her family from the land in Israel, and her husband and sons dine in a foreign country. But when she hears that there is food in her homeland again, she makes her way back. One daughter-in-law leaves Naomi to find a new husband, and the other swears an oath of loyalty to Naomi. Where you go, I will go, and where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. Thus may the Lord do to me, and worse, if anything but death parts you and me. This woman's name is Ruth. Even though Ruth is a foreigner in the land of Israel, a wealthy farmer named Boaz takes interest in her. Boaz is also related to Naomi, making him eligible to redeem Naomi's family. That is, to purchase her late husband's field and continue her late husband's bloodline. Boaz is impressed by Ruth's character and marries her. Ruth and Boaz have a son, and the book closes with a surprise. Ruth is the great-grandmother of King David, whom we meet later in the book of 1 Samuel. The story of Ruth takes place during the time of the Judges. It's a bright story of hope during a very dark period in Israel's spiritual and political history. Now let's take a look at Ruth's role in the Bible. Naomi claims that God has dealt bitterly with her, but the story ends with the women recognizing God's provision for her, which can be found in Ruth chapter 1 verses 20 and Ruth chapter 4 verses 14. Naomi blames God for the loss of her two sons, found in Ruth chapter 1 verses 21. But the book concludes with Ruth being praised as better than 7 sons, found in Ruth chapter 4 verses 15. Then the women said to Naomi, "Blessed is the Lord who has not left you without a redeemer today, and may his name become famous in Israel." The book of Ruth is a love story, but it's far more than romance. Ruth's devotion to Naomi and Boaz's devotion to Ruth provides two compelling portraits of love among the people of God. But the greatest love displayed in this book is God's love for Naomi and all of Israel. Just as Boaz redeemed Naomi, David will go on to deliver Israel from her enemies and bring about security for the nation of Israel. The book of Ruth shows us a picture of Christ in Boaz, the kinsman redeemer. Boaz was a qualified redeemer to Naomi. He was a family member. He had the means of purchasing her land. He had the willingness to buy the land and marry Ruth. Jesus has done this for us. He became one of us. He was willing and capable of buying us back, setting an example of a self-sacrificing husband. Now let's conclude by looking at some of the final statistics. The purpose of this book was to show how 3 people remained strong in character and true to God, even when the society around them was collapsing. In terms of who wrote this book, it's still unknown, but some think it was Samuel, but internal evidence suggests that it was written after Samuel's death. Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of the Bible in 52 Weeks. If you're watching from YouTube, help us spread the word of God by liking this video, subscribing and sharing it with your friends and family. Join us on social media at Croydon PRWC on Instagram and Twitter, and we hope to see you again next week for our next episode.